title of this mini podcast is Preference for Prejudices. The Grasshopper woke me up with this recently. We have a preference for our prejudices. It was eye-opening for me. Seemed to have more meat on it than, do you prefer Chinese or Mexican? Preferences for the most part are due to our conditioning. Reminds me of a story. I would tag along with my mom when I was a wee lad, and we would go to the butcher shop. She'd order a half a pound of ground round. They would put the meat into a grinder, and out would come ground beef. They would offer her a pinch of it to taste for freshness, sort of like the modern-day practice of giving kids seated in the shopping carts at a deli a piece of cheese to keep them occupied. Eventually, my mom would offer me a pinch to taste. I developed a preference for sampling raw ground beef. I realize the practice is abhorrent to many folks, but that was my conditioning. But my preference is not hurting anyone else, only their sensibilities. The sticky wicket comes when we justify our prejudices, many of which we were conditioned into. The classic American example is the feud between the Hatfield and McCoy families. This hostility continued for generations and devolved into ancestral members of those families hating someone with the opposite name, but not knowing why. They had a preference for their prejudice, a justification that kept peace at arm's length. No one I know openly admits to being prejudiced. We all are to some degree, and a lot of it has to do with our conditioning, which we had nothing to do with. But justifying it with the excuse of, that's the way it's always been, keeps it in place. It's about time for an about face. In your quiet time, take a moment and reflect on your prejudice in the light of day. I think you'll discover it keeps your peace at bay. With regular reflection, it becomes apparent that then was then and now is now, and come to the conclusion that it's high time to end that row. All the best, John.